Hi, I'm Emily Carlin, and welcome to the second video in my Conflict Resolution for Magical Community series. Today we're going to talk about underlying interests versus positions. Now, a position in a conflict is what you're asking somebody else to do, what you want to happen. It's things like, I want you to go to the store, or I need X, Y, and Z to happen. That's your position. Now, your underlying interest is the motivation beneath those positions. It's the reasons you came up with them in the first place. Now, your underlying interests are things like a need for respect, a need for recognition, safety, a need for emotional comfort. It's usually very primal, basic needs. Now, a lot of times we don't really know what our underlying interests are in a conflict. To get to an underlying interest from a position, you have to ask why. If your position is, I need you to go to the store, well, why do you need that person to go to the store? Is it because you just need stuff and don't feel like getting it? Or is it because of something else? Is it that you need that person to recognize you and that's what you think will make that happen? Or is it something else? When you ask why long enough, you can actually get down to those underlying interests. Now, it's a lot easier to think about this type of thing in context, so let's go with an example. So, we have a group, and we have Pat and Jim. Now, Pat has bought the supplies for the group for the last few months. Now, that can be supplies, candles, spell components, refreshments, all that kind of thing. And Jim has not. Now, one day, Pat comes up to Jim and says, Jim, for this next meeting, I need you to buy the supplies. And Jim says no. There's our conflict. Pat's position is Jim needs to buy the supplies. Jim's position is that Jim does not need to buy the supplies. So we need to ask, why does Pat want Jim to buy the supplies? Well, Pat wants Jim to buy the supplies because she feels that it's not fair for her to buy the supplies all the time. Well, why isn't it fair? Well, it's not recognizing her contribution to just assume that she's going to do it. Well, why is that a problem? Well, it's because it's not showing Pat any respect. There you go. Respect is actually one of the most common underlying interests you're going to find in conflict, particularly in magical community. I don't know why, but it's something we're pretty keen on, imagine. So, now let's take a look at this conflict from another point of view. What if instead of going up to Jim and demanding that he buy supplies, what if Pat had said, you know, Jim, I feel like I'm not really being respected. Expecting me to always buy the supplies really takes me for granted. We need to do something about this. It needs to change so that I feel like I'm being recognized. Now that's a completely different conflict. When we're just arguing positions, you want this and they don't want to do that, there's really no way for both parties to win. But with the underlying interests, you can actually get through it and everybody can win. Now, if Jim talks to Pat and says, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that you felt that way. Maybe we can work something out so that your contribution is recognized. Everybody wins. Everybody feels happy with the outcome. And most importantly, no one feels attacked, guilt-tripped, or put upon. It's very important to make sure that you approach conflict in a way that everyone feels respected and heard. That's the difference between arguing a position versus an underlying interest.